So the winter meeting's currently underway in Nashville, and man, it has not been short of Mariners news. It just hasn't been the Mariners news that we've wanted to hear. We're not even talking about this Kelenic trade anymore. Now we're talking about all the quotes that have transpired afterward. So there's a couple different ways we can start with this, TJ, and I'll bring it in unless you had something you wanted to add here really quickly.
Can I just read the lead from Ryan Divish's article in the Seattle Times yesterday? That's what I want to do. I think it really sets this up nicely.
Okay.
So everything we're about to go into.
Set the tone for us.
Okay. Nashville, Tennessee. It's not what they wanted to do. It wasn't what they intended to do, but it's what they had to do to have any hope of success. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we sit with the current iteration of the Seattle Mariners.
Let's get into the money here, because Ryan Divish said some things on foul territory too, which I want to get into. But the big topic here is what's going on with the Mariners budget as we currently speak, because all of a sudden ownership is making it seem like there are questions around how much money this team actually has available to spend, which is why they made this trade to get rid of two contracts in Marco Gonzalez and Evan White. And oh, by the way, reports where that trade came together in one day. This was not weeks in the making like the Suarez trade. This all came together on Sunday to get Evan White, Marco Gonzalez, Jared Kelenic out of town, shed salary, and open up some what they call needed room for payroll. So, like, what the fuck is going on with a team that's supposed to be one of the most profitable in baseball?
Jerry Dipoto anticipated going into this offseason, going into his end-of-season press conferences where he made all these proclamations and got roasted for 54% and things that'll hang over his head for the rest of his career, still anticipated going into this offseason with a significantly higher payroll than he had in the 2023 season, only to find out a couple weeks into the offseason that supposed budget that was supposed to be bigger was in fact not bigger. And it came out when the Mariners and Rays have had dialogue about trades for guys we have talked about in past weeks. When Jerry is asking about these trades and they're talking about it, and Jerry says, well, that's good. But with our current payroll of $140 million, we can't do anything with this. So we have to make room, which is why the Mariners have now shed down to about $116 million to even have a chance to add impact around baseball. And now you might ask why. Well, there is one legitimate reason why the Mariners would be concerned about revenue. Root Sports Northwest, which the Mariners purchased about 11 years ago. I think it'll be 11 years ago in 2024. They purchased it. The old ownership group purchased it. And then the new ownership group took over Root Sports Northwest when they purchased the majority stake in the Mariners in 2016. Comcast Xfinity, who is the biggest cable provider in the Pacific Northwest, where all the Mariners fans watch their games, moved Root Sports from the basic tier to the premium tier or the elite tier of sports, and you have to pay X amount more dollars per month to be able to watch not only the Mariners, but the Kraken and the Trailblazers. Well, people don't want to pay that extra money. They'd rather just cut the cord and go to streaming instead. So what does that do? That affects the potential future earnings of not only just the Mariners, but the same baseball club that purchased broadcast rights for the Portland Trailblazers and the Seattle Kraken, and whose return on ad revenue is now significantly lower on 3 separate franchises because they have less television money, because they have less eyes on their product. It is a multifaceted issue of an antiquated business model failing what the Mariners thought it would be. They thought Root Sports Northwest would be such a cash cow, and that when all this Bally Sports stuff was going on, it wouldn't affect them because they own the majority stake in their network. Well, when Comcast Xfinity decided to do that put a real dent in potentially their future earnings, and instead of pocketing the loss themselves, they will instead make the baseball budget and the roster and the fans suffer instead. That's what this is.
I think you explained that all really, really well. I do. I'm also here to tell you that if that is the reason ownership is using for we can't go out and spend money, I call total and complete bullshit. I do. I'm sorry. I don't believe for 1 second that even if this is going on, that even if they're losing money from their TV deal, that they all of a sudden don't have money to spend. I don't believe that for 1 single second. And none of you should either. The Mariners are so profitable. You've heard Divish talk about this. You've heard Ken Rosenthal talk about this. You've heard a ton of people talk about this. The Mariners have money. They are not broke. They are nowhere short in cash. And let's keep in mind, what have they done recently? They have hosted the All-Star Game, made a ton of money off of it. They own the Hatback Grill across the street, which is packed every game, and sometimes road games too. They make the money off that. That's not revenue share. They were top 10 in attendance this year. That was the highest attendance they've had in nearly 20 years at the ballpark. That's a bunch of money. So, okay, you're losing some money on your TV deal that you already mostly all own to yourself and are not revenue sharing. Oh boy, like boo-hoo, billionaires get slightly less rich. I don't believe for 1 second that they can't go out and spend money. And the fact they had to shed payroll to now go, quote unquote, have the ability to go get guys, I think is crazy because you're opening up more holes. You now need 2 outfielders, and the losses that you're, quote unquote, taking from the Root Sports stuff and the Xfinity stuff, you are punishing fans and your team and its players by essentially putting out a worse on-field product if this is what they choose to do.
The quotes that they have put out this week have given the indication that they don't feel like they can afford to get guys to replace that, to get 4 big leaguers to replace what is currently empty on the roster. And that's troubling. Could you imagine how Jerry Dipoto feels right now, where he is back in after the 2018 season, by the way, in a 2018 season where they hampered his ability to go add to a roster that really just needed one more impact guy to break over the barrier and go make the playoffs. But instead, ownership was like, you know what? Instead of winning, we're going to cap your budget, and you are not allowed to go add any significant payroll at the deadline. So instead, we got to go get Adam Warren and Zach Duke. Oh, yeah, what a big impact in that 2018 season. So then Jerry goes, okay, after the 2018 season, here's my idea, ownership. We're going to take a step back. I'm going to reduce the payroll. I'm going to shed some old contracts. I'm going to shed the old players off the roster. We're going to build this thing up. We're going to get some draft picks, some international signings, and we're going to get young, and we're going to get fun, and we're going to get good. And by 2021, 2022, and 2023, we're going to be in our championship window, and then I'm going to want to go spend some money. And you know what the ownership group said? Let's do it. And you know who's not holding up their end of the bargain in all of this? That fucking group right there. They're not holding up their end of the bargain when it comes to taking the steps necessary to win a championship, to take the steps necessary to win a championship and make the additions to this roster that they need to. They're going to let a bad business investment on their part. It was their decision to fork up the money for the Portland Trailblazers. It was their decision to buy the broadcasting rights to the Seattle Kraken. That is their decision. Billionaires, people who are supposed to be good business people, seeing what the future market is supposed to look like for entertainment and content consumption, decided that our regional sports network that is part of a cable package on Xfinity is our future. Okay, so we're going to pitch all of this money to the Kraken and the Trailblazers. Well, it seems like that was a pretty fucking shitty business investment if we're looking at it right now. It looks terrible. And now, again, we are going to have to suffer because of it. And I could only imagine what Jerry Dipoto is thinking in his mind of this. Like, Jerry's caught so much flack. But to have these expectations and to have the ownership group tell you what you will get, like in the middle of the season, yeah, we'll spend more. Cool. And then you get to this point, it's like, well, actually, to get to that point, we're actually going to have you shed payroll and shed our contributors to get what you need. And it's like, what am I supposed to do here? What a mess, dude.
Oh. You know that meme of the kid sitting in class with all the veins popping out of his head? I guarantee you that's Jerry every single time he's had to talk to the media in Nashville since all this ownership stuff came out. Because to your point, you made some phenomenal points, by the way, and very animated at that. And I'm glad you did. Jerry, you're right. Like, I'm sure internally he is tired of hearing it from this fan base. So honestly, let's help Jerry out a little bit. Let's use our platform here and help Jerry out a little bit. He is not perfect. He has had his flaws, sure. What's going on right now should not be blamed on Jerry Dipoto. It should not. If you've got problems with the Mariners right now, climb up the ladder and take it up with ownership, because I guarantee you, Jerry Dipoto wants to spend money about as badly as all the rest of us want him to right now. But he is being handcuffed and tied down by a group of billionaires who, again, through everything you just said, which is true, I still don't believe the fact that they don't have money to go out and get big time players. Here's an idea for you. Have we ever thought about two people sitting right here with no business degree whatsoever? I'm going to sit here and give a bunch of billionaire, quote unquote, smart business owners an idea. Have we ever thought about the idea of spending the money and forking up the money for Shohei Ohtani could actually make up the money you're going to lose on this Root Sports deal, because so many people are going to want to watch Shohei. You're going to take an entire country over with them from Japan, the jersey sales, the ticket sales, the promotion nights, everything. Have you sat and thought about the fact that spending the money now to go get that guy might actually make up the money you're losing off Root Sports? Just a wild concept I'm throwing out here. I mean, is this just too logical, or am I missing something?
Well, Dave Roberts, I think, believes in your plan. He made his best push to get Shohei Ohtani somewhere else today. Dave Roberts, man.
That was unreal.
I know this is breaking subject, but if we're actually trying to get Shohei to Seattle, Dave Roberts, by publicly leaking the Dodgers meeting with Shohei Ohtani today, I thought was just perfect for getting Shohei to Seattle. But yes, I agree with you. We've talked about it. He's going to make whatever team he goes to a ton of money. I think it's a good business opportunity. And, you know, it's so frustrating. You could hear it in Scott's voice too. Like Divish articulated in the Seattle Times, I didn't want to trade Jared Kelenic. Like, I wanted him on this roster this season. I don't think Jerry wanted to trade Jared Kelenic. I don't know if Scott wanted to get rid of Eugenio Suarez as well. And you know what? This might not be it when it comes to salary setting. It could be more. It could be more. You can hear it in Scott's voice, man. You can hear it in some of these quotes he's had, like that we got to do it. Like, this is the deck of cards this is the hand of cards we've been dealt, and we just have to work with it. Oh, like, you read that and it's like, oh my God. A big league baseball, a Major League Baseball team is saying these things.
You got that. You got Divish on foul territory all of a sudden saying, well, the Mariners think in the next 2 years, Logan Gilbert and Cal Raleigh might get traded because the Mariners might not be able to afford them. What? Like, what are you talking about? So you're not signing free agents. You're not giving in-house extensions. Like, what are you doing? Where is all the money you're making going? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. Now, here is the one thing, as we're still on the Shohei topic here. If they actually are shedding payroll to go gear up to sign Shohei, which, again, I still believe is possible, I will take back every word I've said on this podcast. If that is the reason they went and did this, because they're going to go get Shohei, great. If it's not, and they're clearing payroll because they want to go sign Lourdes Gurriel, we're going to have problems.
Yeah, we're going to have problems. Last thing from me on this, I was going to say, if John Stanton believes true to his words that he truly wants to win a World Series and he truly wants to do that, trading guys like Cal Raleigh and Logan Gilbert because they're too expensive that's not the way to go about it. It seems bad, and it seems like I don't know how the Mariners expect to win if the payroll is that low. And unless they truly want to become the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays have shown you can win that way, but the way the Mariners are currently structured and the people they have employed, I'm not sure that's really going to cut it.
Look, Cal Raleigh may never sign an extension anyway because he is a Scott Boras guy, but again, the fact that's even being put out there is crazy. Here is the last thing before we transition to our interview. John Stanton gets a lot of flack, as he should. He is the majority owner. But the Mariners ownership group consists of a lot of people. And when you hear the Mariners ownership group getting talked about, it's John Stanton this, John Stanton this, Stanton. I think we got to put these other names out here, because if there is this much of an issue with the ownership, I can't believe I'm even going to say this. I don't think it's fair to put every ounce of blame on John Stanton, even though he deserves a lot of it. So there was an article written a while back about who the Mariners ownership group is. There's 16 people on this ownership group. We are going to read you guys the names, and you can do what you want with it. We're just going to put it out there because that article exists. This is who it is besides Stanton. The main minority owner is a guy named Chris Larson. So if you want the number 2 guy behind John Stanton, it's Chris Larson. So you can remember that name. There is still a guy from the Nintendo group named, I don't want to botch his name. I'm going to do my best. Minoru Arakawa, who is part of the Nintendo group. And then the rest of the guys, here are their names. Frank Schranz, Rob Glazer, Wayne Perry, John Ellis, John Bauer, Howard Lincoln, Buck Ferguson, Joan Watjen, Jeff Rakes, Carl Stork, Judith Bigelow, Rufus Lumery, and Bill Marklin. There are the 16 names on the ownership group. Stanton deserves blame. Larson's number 2, and there's the rest of the group. Carl Stork, by the way, has been catching flack on Twitter.
Yeah. We found him on Twitter. Not many of them have Twitter accounts, but he has one, and he's been dug out a little bit.